Our guest today, Mike Millard, was an absolute joy. He's a vivacious, hilarious, and kind-hearted man who couldn't be more perfect for our Season 2 finale. Professionally, Mike brings over 25 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies like Dell, HP, and AT&T Ventures. His career spans everything from commercializing cutting-edge tech solutions to mentoring entrepreneurs and future-focused investing. One of Mike's coolest ventures is Pitch a Kid, a unique startup program where entrepreneurs pitch their ideas to a panel of kids, a concept he dreamed up with his daughter. In this episode, Mike reflects on how his Midwest upbringing shaped his values, work ethic, and humor, and how he sees striking parallels between raising children and launching startups, both of which require a healthy mix of faith, hope, and love. So get ready for an inspiring and laugh-out-loud conversation as we close out Season 2 of Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life.
This is number 12.
Number 12. Oh, this is the ultimate episode.
Finale.
Yes, number 12. That's so cool.
Alrighty.
Season 2, episode 12.
Welcome to Founding Up.
Is there going to be like paparazzi outside?
There might be.
Oh, yeah,
I've already...
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
I've
It's like the book that we've paid them to.
Hey,
Yeah.
zip it. We're going on air now. No more talk about that unmentionable.
Well, it's my book. What are you talking about?
Your book.
All right, let's get started.
That I'm probably writing.
Welcome to Founding Up.
Woo!
Uncharted.
Woohoo!
Wait, I
Episode
gotta
12.
finish the whole title. Welcome to Founding Up's Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life, episode 12, season 2, end of season. Yay.
Season finale.
That's amazing. We've done 24 episodes.
Yes, we have.
In 58 minutes, we will have done 24 episodes. Yeah.
Right.
Getting ahead.
How's that feel?
I know.
This is awesome. I feel very good. I feel very important.
You are.
You are important.
100%.
Our extra super special
I
guest.
decided after yesterday, I'm no longer going to say our special guest. I'm just going to say our guest today is, because they're all special.
I know.
I think you have to keep adding extras, extra supers.
So this would have been 24 extras.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's
Yeah.
like Dragon Ball Z. You've got to like.
Today we have a 24 extra. We have a special guest to the 24th power.
Degree.
Extra
Yeah.
special guest.
Before we get started with hearing your backstory, and I won't even say your name, I'll let you say that yourself because, we're introducing ourselves now. And
It's my turn.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie Payton. I'm an actor, comedian, podcast person, Natalie, and co-host of Uncharted.
Do you have a joke?
Wow, we put her on the spot.
Hey,
Do you know what I
she
used to
does
say?
improv. Like, she's used to this stuff.
It's true. I'm in Tech Week right now for a show, so all of my jokes I'm thinking about are for the show. Do you know I play Greg Abbott in every sketch?
Oh, I love that.
I know.
Oh,
I really do.
What are the dates? What are the dates to your thing?
October 11, 12, 13. Please come. Please bring John.
Oh.
Please have John bring Greg.
Great.
Or the
I'm-
speechwriter.
I'm going to
In
talk to you
October,
afterwards.
the odds of me getting Greg Abbott's speechwriter to come see a play are slim.
It's called Over the Ledge. It's the only Texas satirical comedy about the Texas legislation and politics and decisions that are made in Texas politics.
I am
Okay.
going to push John. I've
Thank
got at a funeral that weekend,
Ooh,
so
I'm
I'm
sorry
out.
to hear that.
But
I'll try.
but maybe Sunday. Are you is the 13th
Sunday.
is?
Mhm.
How do I
okay,
get
At
Sunday
2
night.
p.m. I will
I'm
get you the
back.
information.
Man, we're gonna have to edit all of this out.
No, just
Oh.
Leave it in.
Guys, the play
you-
was great, because it'll happen many weeks after.
It was
true.
phenomenal.
This is true.
Yeah.
We loved it.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry. Thanks for letting me have the what is it called?
moment.
Thank you.
Spotlight.
Sure. Yeah. Limelight, moment,
Plug.
pedestal, plug, all of the above.
15 minutes, 2 minutes. To film.
It ended.
Next,
You get 3
we have
seconds.
our
try
very
to follow
special.
that, Leon.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, and seasoned idiot, and co-host and co-founder, among other things. I stole that from you.
Co-host of
Who even knows at this point? Co-host of Uncharted
and co-founder.
of
There
Founding
we
Up.
go. I'm like, you really accentuated the last, the first thing you said.
I don't even remember. It's one of those days.
You
And
did
I'm
great.
Dan Dillard. I am co-host of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life, and co-founder of Founding Up, among other things. And really excited to have this wonderful guest to my left. We've known each other for a number of years.
We have. I actually don't remember how long it's been.
That's how you know you're good friends. You're like, I don't
think
even remember.
We met 2017-ish. Because
Challenges?
we were doing with Founding Austin, we started that in 2016, and then we started the one of the podcasts 2017, and it was Up and Comers, where we wanted to like interview all the different ones.
Your memory's fine.
Sometimes, except for names, except for my niece's name. Sometimes. But
For our Gen Z audience listening, this is what's coming for you. By
yes,
the way.
yes.
Welcome
This
to
is a
middle
mentorship.
age.
Mentorship at its
We're trying to
finest.
get it on video before
Your
it goes away.
Your mentor will change the world for you, but they might not remember your name. Just that happens, okay? Out of the blue.
Why don't we start? Well, let's do the introduction.
Sure.
You're like, the special to the 24th Power.
This is great.
Guest today.
So, Mike Millard, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks
You
for
are very
being
welcome.
here.
There were so many people taking pictures on the way in. It was wild.
Hectic.
Yeah, just
That's why we
just
have
getting
the
used to it.
bouncers. It's to keep the
Yes,
crowds
I really appreciate that. That was good. I'm a dad, husband. Currently, I'm a partner at Ecliptic Capital, and I also have a program I run called Pitch a Kid. My background is pretty heavy in corporate strategy, which I tell people is a lot of PowerPoint and spreadsheets, and did some commercialization, and then did some innovation stuff at Ascension. So happy to be here. This is good.
Ascension the hospital?
Mhm.
Cool.
Super excited. Now I want to pull the thread on all of this stuff.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for
Love
sure.
it.
So first of all,
When you were 5,
before I'm going to start with something else. I just want to start with current stuff, because I think that venture is a mystery to especially a lot of young people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of like, what is this? How do you get into it? Like, what's the secret? That kind of stuff. So can we just like pull the thread on that a little bit?
Sure. Like what? How to
Like
get into it?
No. Like what is it? Like what is it?
So
what do you do on a daily? How do you look at companies? That kind of stuff.
venture on the surface is super easy, right? It's not a hard
but
concept.
just found $100 billion company and profit. Job
Raise
done.
some money, give some money to startups. They make you a lot of money, and you're done. How hard can that be?
Do y'all have like a one bank account and you loan it out to company? Like technically speaking?
So technically, how it works is you're going to go to an LP, generally
Limited partner.
Limited partner, yeah.
and they're going to give us money, and then we would be the stewards of that money, and then we're going to disperse that to companies to invest in,
I see.
take an equity share. All companies will be hugely successful. None of the
Oh.
startups fail, right? And then you get that money back. You give some back to the LPs, and then we make a little money, and the startup makes money.
I always imagined it or kind of described it, and it may not be relevant anymore because I don't know if this exists. Maybe it does, but record labels would do something where they would,
No.
they would invest in like 10 different
Yeah.
10 different artists, and then one would
Yeah.
pop and go, and that's, they would succeed in that thing. So that's kind of, in my head, I use that analogy when I'm looking at VCs, because
Yeah.
Very interesting. So like those musicians or the companies that pop off or go, do they feel like they're carrying the rest of the other companies within the VC firm?
I don't know if they feel that.
Okay.
I think when you're looking at different companies, you're trying to find, is it a good team? Is it a good market? Is it a good business model? Is the technology sound? Is the IP sound? All the things. What makes it tough is you can do all that and still fail. So it's quite humbling, right? So you look at this and go, well, I've done my diligence. The team is great. The technology is great. The competitive angle is good. The moat is outstanding. The IP is wonderful. Everything is looking great. But for whatever
And
reason,
flop.
things change.
Turns out the world is a little unpredictable.
Yeah.
I mean, my stock market algorithm's doing just brilliantly. I let it run away. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So things change. So that's what I think is interesting about venture. And I've told people this is, I'm a very happy person. I think you have to be in this business. But in some ways, it's kind of depressing
Sure.
because let's say you have a portfolio of 10 companies.
well, you're guaranteed that 9 of them are going to implode, right? I mean, that's statistically
Not
speaking.
all of them are going to do well. And it's hard because, as we've talked before, I kind of view the startups as, not in a weird way, but they're like my kids.
Yeah, I
Sure.
get that.
I want to
You've
work with them.
invested in them, like literally, of course, but also sort of metaphorically,
and you want
care about them.
You want them to grow on their own. You want to help them where you can, but you have to ask the tough questions. You kind of have to be a little bit like a dad, right? And I think early on with kids, you're not necessarily their best friend. You're the dad,
Right. My son certainly.
So, but those will fail, right? And it's somewhat depressing, and not in a bad way, but you're like, because at the time of the investment, everything's great.
Jubilant. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to do this. It's all going to be outstanding. You guys know, you've been entrepreneurial. You know that things change. It's
I have
hard.
never failed once in my life. Everything has just been success after success. I don't know what you're talking about.
My favorite Leon quote is that life is failure proof, though.
You're like, what? I quoted that? Did I say that?
Yeah, I mean,
That's actually
life
good.
is very failure proof. You think of just the myriad mistakes. My entire life has been like 10 million mistakes and 3 successes.
Well, what is that?
I was
Isn't
going
there
to plug in the company. One FU after another.
Founding up as FU.
There's a quote, and I forget how it goes. It's pretty common, but Michael Jordan, something along the lines of like, I was entrusted to, have all these winning shots and I missed them, and I've taken this many shots and I missed them, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why do I succeed? It's because I fail over and over and over again. That's why I succeed.
Right.
Right. So I think in a lot of
you get up to bat.
And you fail at
think so.
100% of the shots you don't take. I know he said that.
Yeah.
So
It's something along the lines of, you have to embrace that in even anybody that's super successful. And this is what I would encourage folks to kind of embrace is, you see a lot of the end result, but man, if you go back in time, there's a lot of failure, a lot of tears, a lot of loneliness. It's not always easy. But I think what we do in our society is we kind of go at the end result and be like, oh, look, they IPO'd. Yeah. It's really hard.
That's what you see, though, right? Media today, for better or worse, I do love media. I love, like we bash social media a lot, but it is, it can be a great net positive. But you just see for that 15-second TikTok, here's the founder of so boom, out of left field comes ChatGPT, OpenAI, ChatGPT. Here's Sam Altman. He's now a celebrity, most successful, something. He's been working on that for like 15 years or whatever it is, 10 years, right? Like it wasn't like he just rocked up, was like, boom, drops OpenAI and then like is a billionaire and leaves.
Right.
And then you say loneliness, struggling. That was going to be open source. Remember that idea? OpenAI. And like, oh no, they changed that idea pretty quickly when they needed money.
Well, the other thing I think people forget is that when you have a business, and I think you can kind of compare it to your life, life is messy. Startups are messy. And I think there's a little bit of, I do see a lot of young people think, well, should it be like this? And I would emphatically say, yeah. Like that's kind of how it is. You're always a work in progress. You're always trying to get better. You're always trying to learn. And with a startup mindset, a growth mindset, you're going to make mistakes.
I always, when people ask questions, do a lot of business advice, just by the nature of having interviewed as many people have interviewed, people show up and ask questions. And so like, here's some of that advice. And I always equate it to organic material, like a tree, right? It's not linear. It's not going to do this. It's going to do this. It's going to do this. It's going to do this. We as humans are organic. Our brain is expanding all these connections. It's just
like that.
And so because of just the nature of the tools you're working with, the same thing's going to happen with the business. It's going to do this, it's going to do this, different ideas. It just happens. It's not linear. So
I like that. That's good.
Me too.
all right. Let's now go back. Therapy session. You're 5 years old. No, you're 10 years old. You're 15 years old. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Wow. I think originally I wanted to be a professional tennis player.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think originally because I was watching the professional athletes.
Were you watching
How old
Andre?
are you at this point?
I'm probably
Can I pause right there for a second? Because before the start of our podcast, he's like, can I cuss on the podcast? And we're like, yeah. So I'm thinking you were channeling John McEnroe.
I was going to say Agassi.
Agassi, yeah. I remember watching him in the 80s and whatnot. I think there was a little bit because I thought I didn't realize at the time I was pretty young, but I thought they'll pay you to hit
What?
this fuzzy
To have
ball back and
fun.
forth like that.
That
Who wouldn't
seems
want to do
pretty
that?
easy.
That sounds awesome. So there's a little, I think that was like the original thing. And then I think it changed to, I've always been intrigued with strategy. Played a lot of chess as a kid. And I think it was, like, do I want to do this? I wanted to do something that was impactful, something that allowed me to do research and something strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a kid, because I played chess with my dad all the time. And he's like, you're, odd. Most kids, are like, why do you want to play chess with dad? But I just found that because it was fun. It was interesting.
Right.
It was challenging.
Yeah.
So tennis to strategy, something.
Okay. And how did that change for you? Or when did that change? And did it involve mentors that helped you change that path? Because that's what we found mostly, except for one guest.
He had all of the insight right from the beginning. And
You're like,
honestly, he didn't
secretly
need any
am a
advice. He
tennis
hasn't
player,
spoken
didn't
to
tell you.
anyone in 20 years. He just boom.
Are
career.
doing strategy now.
What's that?
You are doing what you wanted to do.
I am doing. I mean, I view being a VC to me is in many ways, I love my job. It's the ultimate strategy gig because as a startup, and you guys know this really well, you kind of go down a path, and if you commit to it and you're wrong, and you're 1 degree off, it's like a ship leaving the shore. If you're just a little off, boy, it turns into a nightmare later on. So it's a little bit like, hey, I've got to figure out the strategy, but it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, right? And you have to figure out exactly how you're going to change it. So I kind of view it as the ultimate strategy game. That's why I love it, is because it's not just execution, which it is for a lot of, but it's more about, given the situation where you are with resources and people and your technology, what do you have to do right now to be successful for the next 90 days?
Is it creative?
Venture capital? I think so, but it's not the creative that I think people think it might be. So I think it's creative from learning
Canvas is a spreadsheet.
Yes. I mean, a term sheet, not so much. I don't know if there's a whole,
boilerplate.
I don't know if there's a whole lot of creativity.
You can put your writing skills into your poetic writing skills into the term sheet.
Here's 1.4. But I don't know. I don't know if it's a lot of creativity there.
1.4 and maybe more.
Yes, maybe 1.41.
Roses are red.
But I do think from understanding how to use those resources, people, process, technology at that given time, it's creative.
I can see that. I think you know this. My background in financial planning, 20 years.
Yeah.
It attracted me because it was creative from a standpoint of strategy. I'm having to create a strategy for
that individual.
every single different, and every family is different. It's not one size fits all. It's like everybody's got to poses different problems. So I can see where VCs would also see different situations.
And I think that's the trick, is that if you have success, you kind of do the I have a hammer, everything's a nail.
Right.
So you start wanting to replicate whatever you did with the last startup.
I've met quite a few guys that have I was the founder of name enormous company you've heard of. And then I did the next thing and oh man, that didn't go very well.
Exactly.
So the variables, there's so many different variables, especially the people possibly being different.
And that's one of the things why I asked that question, is because a lot of people seem to want to put a process to things. And while you do have to have a basic structure, these are the things that need to be taken care of, but there's a lot, as you pointed out, variables that are different. I know that as we've built things, you go back and read books, and you go back and read books of people that have done things 10 years ago. And let's do it that way. Well, that was 10 years ago. Things have, markets, world, everything has shifted. So you can't really build and use all of that. You might use some of the information, but some of it's changed. I mean, the AI is now different. Internet, some of this was pre-internet. So you've got to apply all those different things that are showing up.
Yep.
So,
but I think back to your original question on did I have mentors? I did. And I think what was interesting is early on, I didn't know they were mentors. It was just, hey, I'm going to go talk to Dan. Right. And you might say something like, oh, that's interesting. Later, I started realizing, wow, these people have been there, done that. They're offering me a lot of help. They're offering me guidance, or they're just listening. And I think that's where I started kind of craving, I can I can be a better version of myself if I learn from others.
Right.
So I surround myself with a lot of mentors. It's not me at all. In fact, a lot of the stuff that I have, I try to attribute, but I'm like, I learned this from my mentors.
Right.
And they help, I think, guide your decision making. You're still going to make mistakes, to your point, but hopefully not as much, maybe.
Right. No, for sure. First thing that we started doing, we started building Fine Up, is grabbing a bunch of advisors, because both of us had some really unique situations, and that mentorship meant a lot to us. Like me interviewing over 300 entrepreneurs. Imagine that mentorship, that just knowledge and just spending an hour with someone and just like what they went through and just kind of absorbing that. And I wanted to share that. And so, yeah, very first thing is like, we're not going to do this on our own. Let's go find a lot of people to help us with this. This is the way to do it. And so I think removing ego, and for an entrepreneur, like you've got to balance that, right? You've got to be like, I have this wonderful vision and wonderful idea, and I've got this intuition, but still like put that ego aside and say, okay, let me go get some mentors that really understand the intuition, maybe align with me, and then let's go. Right. Because the same thing, you don't want a lot of naysayers. You want to you want to have people that are smart and can support and see your vision to kind of go down that route.
That's so true. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. All right. So the shift, mentors, like, let's talk about the first, like, where did you go from tennis to like?
Yeah. So you're a pro tennis player. You're 10 or whatever it is.
You and August are hanging out.
We're hanging out.
Right.
It's how we roll. Yeah. I think I kind of got a good dose. So I'm going to fast forward. So went to college, really got into like business and strategy stuff. Loved marketing. That's what I majored in because I thought it was creative. Loved stats. That was really interesting. Went back to school, did the MBA thing, learned how to optimize, minimize, maximize, all that good stuff. And then my first job after graduate school was Western Digital. And that's where I kind of started with
the hard drive company?
Hard drive.
Yeah, I know those guys.
Yeah. And that's where I had a good mentor, my boss. And it was more about, I think, the whole person than just being an employee.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some subtle, tips, subtle, things you might want to think about, as a young person. Yeah. And I started internalizing and I went, wow, this is really helpful. And then I went to HP, and my boss became not just my mentor, but my friend. Mm-hmm. And that became much more. So I still talk to him this day. Actually saw him a few months ago. So it was great. And he's been, not just with family things and business things, but just life.
Right.
And I think that's where it's nice to have a good set of mentors that are helping you, because once you realize we're all going through the same thing.
Right.
Right. Or since we're a little seasoned, mm-hmm. not very seasoned, but just a little seasoned, we might have
signals.
Right. We might have gone through some of these things. And that's where there's like a little bit of wisdom to go, oh. But I think it's hard when you're younger, because I think there's that, no one understands, no one knows what I'm going through.
And FYI, wisdom just means more failures.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Well, but if you're young, they don't, right? Because unless you have that mentor and that mentorship, which, candidly, a lot of young people don't, no one does understand you, because you talk to your peer and they haven't gone through that because they haven't lived. You know what I mean? Like you're there with your 10 friends. They are effectively your mentors. You're a peer mentor group. And you're like, oh, I just broke up with my first girlfriend. And they're like, I mean, yeah, like, And they like, it is true. You haven't, right? When you're coming up with your peers, those things that come up in life, they haven't happened yet.
That's
so no one knows.
That's yeah. But I think I totally agree with you. I think there is a thread of, you do have to get to, everyone is going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a long time ago, and I said, I like, you've been lucky. I've met a lot of people, right? And I get to talk to them and engage with them. And the people, I think there's a misconception that no matter who they are, they have hopes, dreams, insecurities. No matter who you think they are, they have them. Mm-hmm. We're all in many ways the same, right?
Have you heard of the word sonder? Sonder is a feeling you get, which I get this quite often, if you're in a large crowd of people, when you realize that every other person in that crowd, their life, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their aspirations are all just as complicated as yours. And there's hundreds, thousands, 10,000 of them in whatever group you happen to be in. Stadium. After, like when you're in a stadium and you're just like, ACL, just like every person in this. Yeah, you're stood somewhere, you're looking at a crowd and you say, every person in that crowd's life is just as complex as mine. Maybe more, perhaps.
That's a good word.
Sonder. Word of the day.
That is the
I was expecting a rocket scientist word, but no.
No. And then it leads to the fun phrase that not all who sonder are lost.
Oh.
There you go.
There you go.
Anyway, not to derail you.
No, that's awesome. I love it. I just think there's a lot of when you work with your mentors and get to know them, and you can, he says, put the ego aside,
right?
Because I think there is a little bit of humility that comes with growth. You have to accept maybe I don't know,
right?
But I also think that that's where you understand like everyone is in that boat, right? Some of the most successful entrepreneurs I know started with, back to your point, a lot of failure. I mean, things that I go, you did that? What were you thinking? He's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I was doing. It's like, oh, clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. Right. And I think there's just embracing that. And I think that's what makes life so awesome.
Well, and in hindsight, right, it looks so perfect. Yeah. Right. But man, when you're there and that outcome isn't guaranteed, and there's one person makes the good decision or there's 100 Elon Musks in the world, right? 99 of them just failed out. And, and Elon made it. And so we all know who he is. And so when you look at his life story, it all seems so, it's like Star Wars, at the end, when the hero has won, all seems so perfect. But man, when Luke Skywalker is there, raking the sand, if you imagine you were him, you're like, why in God's name am I raking sand? Like, this is dumb.
I think you touched on a great point about humility, because I feel like in society, we've said this before, society, we are kind of put in a box. Like the society expects you at school, college, do this, and it'll all work out. And as history changes, big systems change, but it takes a long time. And so this pass, fail, grading, all kinds of stuff gets you in this mentality of, I've got to do this, and it be the smartest in the class. And there's all these things that lead up to this ego, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, when you actually go into life and really start failing, that's when the ego starts coming back into check. And I think it's both a humility from the mentee and the mentor. Because the mentor, you are at a stage where you want to help others, but sometimes they're not going to take your advice, and you're just going to be like, okay, cool. It's like parenting, right? It's like, here's, you were talking about this earlier. It's like, I want these three things for you, and here's what I'm telling you. And then you got to step back and let them do their thing. Everybody's got their own journey, and they got to figure it out. And sometimes, even though you think they're going to fail because they do X, Y, or Z, and you've been there before and you failed at that thing, but because of a different time in life or different circumstances, they actually do succeed with their journey. And so that's why it takes humility on both sides.
I think it does. But also there's a weird thread. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on this, because I believe part of the reason that a lot of entrepreneurs get swagger is because they're doing something hard. Mm-hmm. Right, starting a business, putting themselves out there. Mm-hmm.
You're in the arena.
You're doing everything. You're your finance, your sales, your IT. And then when they power through lots of failure, they get that deep confidence that goes, I can do this. Yeah. Now, they're still humble.
Sure.
But then when the next task comes around, they're like, I may fail, but I know I will eventually succeed.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a weird kind of thing where you want to be humble and have humility. But then I think there's also an aspect of that can actually fuel this confidence to keep going. Yeah. Right? Because I think I always, tell folks, if you want to get confidence, real confidence, not, I passed this test, just go do something hard. Yeah. Right? I did a triathlon at 55. It was not pretty. I was last in every category.
Mhm.
Like, so you know how they slice it? Like if you're over 55 or
you
over
get
this
like a
weight
different,
limit.
yeah.
I literally went on the thing and I'm like, 7 out of 7, 10 out of 10. Like I was last in every category. I was like, but
Yes.
Did it?
crushed it. And the humble part was I was swimming, and as a tennis player, triathlon was like the farthest thing away from what I knew how to do. And I went out, and my buddy, my mentor, who was a Ironman guy, literally is like, I'm going to train you. So I'm like, clearly I will win. I'm being trained by an Ironman. So I go out and I start swimming, and I'm doing it, and I'm all excited. I swam into the weeds.
Oh,
Literally.
Like right into, like, because when you're in a pool, you can kind of see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
You look down. When you're in a lake, there's no.
there's no lane.
Nothing to navigate.
So it was a sprint. It was 500 meters. I think I swam probably 1,000 meters because I was so bad at trying to swim. But I did that. I got on the bike. I was watching these professional people do their changeover in like 30 seconds. I was like 5 minutes. I was terrible. And then I get to the run. We're going to call it a run.
Let's establish that right now.
It really wasn't a run. But at the end of it, I was like, I did it.
I did.
that.
I did it. And as an overachiever, I was last in every category.
Yes,
You just didn't want
were.
the other people to feel bad.
That's how I roll.
Dude, you're just a giving person.
I am.
That's humble achievement.
But
That's humble
I was
achievement.
being humble. But I was like, wow. But then it was sort of, I don't know, like I can do the next thing.
You've seen that video where the two athletes are going, and then one athlete is about to win and goes in a different direction, and then the second athlete just lets them win. You've seen that?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, you overachieved there.
I
You
did.
just stood back and you said, "Go, go, go."
All of you. Just
Well, I did. Well, this is there is a side of me that when I was younger is a little bit more competitive. And I had done a marathon. I
Mhm.
was like, I'm going to do this because that's very similar to tennis.
yeah.
Short bursts of energy, for 26.2 miles. So at the end,
Just like
I'm-
tennis.
just like tennis, but at the end, it's like 6 hours in. I mean, I'm not very fast at
Right.
all. And I see this older couple.
Mhm.
And I mean, older, like a lot older than me. And they fly by me. Like I'm standing still. And I don't know what came over me, but I was like, no, this will not happen.
This.
How
And
did that end?
I went for it, and I was still like 6 hours and whatever minutes, but I beat them. I did. I just was like, no, I will not let this.
This is hilarious.
No.
Awesome.
I used to run around Hyde Park back when I lived in London, and I don't know what it was about when I ran. There was this one guy I saw quite often, and he must have been late 60s, early 70s, and every time, and like I kind of you sort of metric yourself by how many people overtake you versus how many people you overtake. And I'm like overtaking like 7 out of 10 people, for every 3 people I overtake, someone overtakes me, right? This old guy flew past me
I know.
every time. And I'm just like, at first I was kind of annoyed, but then it happened enough times. And I'm just like, when I grow up, I hope I'm him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Well, it was a humbling moment. So I beat them. So that was like
Right.
my big yay. And I get there, and it's 6 hours and something. There's no,
Right.
Everyone's gone. So I'm waiting.
So nobody sees this.
No one sees it. Like there's nobody. And then I'm like, well,
But
you
them.
get a
and then, like,
medal. There's no one there.
Like all the snack people are
Yeah,
gone.
they're all gone. So I'm like, so I had to go over to the table and I
grab
grab my medal, grab my banana.
and then the old
That's a
the old
pro
people
tip.
show up and hit
Grab
you with
your
a club and
aluminum
take it.
blanket.
That's a pro tip, though. If you want a marathon medal, just show up 6 hours
need-
afterwards.
Yeah.
You can just pick one up. You don't actually have to run for 6 hours.
So I'm just like, I'm going to cherish this, that in the last whatever mile, I overtook an older couple.
Nice.
That's my win.
So
Nice.
good.
Nice.
Mike, who is your doppelganger? I'm sorry, I'm changing the subject
Oh.
for 2 seconds. Who is your doppelganger?
I don't know. I don't know if I have one.
You are so funny, and you remind me so much of Will Ferrell.
I'll take that.
It's a great
I'll
compliment.
take that.
Like
was
he
awesome.
is hilarious.
You
and
need a fuller
I
beard.
do need a full beard. Yes.
I'm just this whole time. I'm like the way you tell stories. I'm like, I'm sitting with Will Ferrell right now.
How about best movie with Will Ferrell? Which one do you like?
Step Brothers.
Oh, that's
Oh,
good.
that's a
good.
good one.
You're wrong, but
That's
it's good.
That's like a high level of failure.
Okay, and
I'm
then
going-
Elf,
I'm-
and then Elf.
Elf. I like old school.
Old school
Same.
is great.
That was the one I was going to say. There's Ghost Streaking.
That's
Ladies
good.
and gentlemen, for the Gen Z audience out there, for
You need to go
movies,
look it up.
we'll take 10 for movies you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry to
Well,
interrupt
thank
you,
you.
Dan. Yes, you're welcome.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome. Love that. Okay, so we're talking old people win, right? I had a client of mine, or have a client still in our
He's still winning.
wealth management company. And she invited me, like she retired. Now, this was like 10 years ago, maybe 15. She invited me to go play tennis after she retired. She's just one of those things that she likes to do.
Sure.
And I was like taking some tennis lessons, like, yeah, I'll go. And I was like, 40 at the time. She was like 70.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
bad.
Went out there. It's like, all right, I'm going to take it easy on. I mean, she's 70. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm 40. It's like, I'm going to take it easy. I'm taking a few tennis lessons, but this is a hobby for her. Whenever a person, and because you play tennis, can just stay in the middle and do everything,
dunk,
and the
dunk.
other guy on the other side is like all over the place, just trying to chase balls. That was me. I was winded. I was sweating, and she was like, not even out of breath.
And if that isn't an analogy for a good mentor, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great point. Good
That's
visual.
just like, the tennis game with one just dunk, dunk, dunk. And you're like, oh God, that's good mentorship. You're like, no, stay in the middle. Stop running.
Oh man, this has been a fun conversation. Why don't we jump into some of these? So as we talked about this before, last part of the episode, we'll go into. We've had a correspondent go out and talk to some Gen Z and figure out what keeps them up at night. And so we, with our gray hair, can say, "Oh yeah, I did that," or "I felt this way," and here's how I'll tackle it.
Remind me exactly, like, what is I know Gen X. Like, what's the era? Like
Gen Z is
the years.
Like 1996 to 2010.
They are between the ages of 6 and 24 off the top of my head.
Okay,
Gen
that helps.
Z.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Okay, so 2014. Yeah.
Let's jump into this first one. So we've got Edwin talking about success. Let's see what he says.
What is your definition of success today? It might change in a month, but for you today.
Success is, for me, just personal development, and as long as you work hard to develop yourself, to me that's, success, maybe to me that to many people as well, to me, maybe that's not the full extent of success, but that's still success, working hard and developing yourself even to the tiniest things.
I love Edwin. Edwin,
I do too.
we met Edwin.
So this is an
we met Edwin at ACC here, and then we did a few interviews here, and then he did one with Anais. He worked in school government,
Student government.
Student government,
yeah.
and just so articulate and really well thought out what he said.
Yeah.
So, but his definition of success. What's your definition of success? I'm wondering. Let's put you on the spot.
I like that. I've given this a lot of thought. I think success is about impact. I believe we're on this planet to do two things: to love and to learn. And I believe once you embrace those,
Mhm.
you can create impact. And part of that is kind of what, we were talking about, like growth. But I believe success is really a little bit of self-actualization, being the best person you can be. But I believe you're on this planet to do something. And everyone's good at something. It doesn't have to be, I'm running this big company, or I won the NBA championships, or I won Wimbledon, which I did several times, as you know. But it's more about, hey, when you find that thing that gets you excited, can you create an impact? Can you do something? Is it working with your local, nonprofit? Is it working with your local church? It doesn't have to be this grand thing, because, and this is what I've thought a lot about, we kind of, to your point about the media, there's this thing about, you see the Elon Musk. But what about all the people that maybe influenced an individual that helped them, that ripple effect when they were younger,
Right.
that allowed them to do X, Y, and Z? Maybe that allowed them, you said the right thing at the right time, so they continued on and got a degree, or they finished staying in the military, or whatever challenge they were doing, that particular ripple effect. So success to me is more about that impact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of embracing the fact that we all can do it. I think there's a myth, right? That, well, so-and-so's different. And I don't know if I believe that.
We're all different.
Mm-hmm.
We're all unique, just like everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like
I think a lot of it's inside of you. I don't think
Power's inside you all along.
I kind of believe that. I really
It's
believe
100% true.
that people kind of underestimate themselves. And part of one of the things, I'll tell you a funny story. I met one of my mentors years ago, and I was going to run an accelerator, and I asked him, we're going to go out to lunch, and almost before we sat down, he goes, "No." And I was like,
What are you going to ask me?
wow, I haven't
Sorry,
sat
what?
down yet. I was like, wow, that's outstanding. So
Literally, you're outstanding.
yeah, I was like, wow. So anyway, he's like, I'm not going to give you money for this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And I said, well, tell me why. He says, I don't know if the startups are any good. And I go, what do you mean they're not any good? And he's like, well, I think that people on the coast are thinking bigger.
Right.
They're not satisfied with just X.
Mhm.
Go for it. And I got to thinking about that, and I've thought about it for years, is I think sometimes you do want to have a realistic, sense of yourself,
right.
right? Am I going to go run a marathon tomorrow and win? Probably not, right? But
Not with that attitude.
yeah, but I do think there's an element of, I think you think bigger. It's inside you to do well.
I love that because we speak the same thing. It's like, I've said this before. I'll echo everything you said because I think that you're on the money. My opinion on success is becoming your best self, and that means recognizing that gift, that stardust that's inside you.
Yeah. And
understand that reality is different for every one of us. Like we all have our own reality on our head. That's a saying. That's the reason why that said that. And are you the main character in your reality? Yeah. And if you are, then go create it, make it happen. Or are you a non-player character? Right? Because some people live life. Some people have life happen to them and they're okay with the status quo. And some people figure out what's inside. And that's that becoming, finding out who you are and being your best self. Got to do that first. And then once you do, once you figure this out, whether it's becoming a musician, whether it's whatever gifts you're going to give to the world, there is a gift there.
Yeah.
Figure that out. And then whether it's teaching, building a company, any of that, any of
or
the
it could be, we forget to celebrate the things like maybe you're just a great son. Maybe you're a great dad. Maybe you're a great mentor.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be this thing that may be tied to monetary.
Well, and to that point, you mentioned the self-actualization. I think we're also all here to support one another and being the best version of themselves.
100%.
Like being cheerleaders for the people that we love and care about and helping hold them when they're struggling. The old lean on me song, being able to be leaned on and lean on others when you're in need.
Yeah.
And I think that strikes to the core of what mentorship is. It's really love your neighbor. At the end of the day, and why we encourage Gen Z to reach out is because they have lived in a world where it's behind a screen versus out there doing how we grew up, which is like playing in dirt with other kids. Like you just had this.
It's so true.
This different experience.
Yeah.
And even in the way we grew up, only about 10% really get a lot of mentorship. There's the other people that don't. And so it's like, go reach out for this because it does change your life. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, every one of us have worked so hard to go through all these failures that we want to share that cheat code to someone else and say, here, learn from what my mistakes are and improve. Nobody wants to see failure.
But I think you make a good point. I really do. Because I think there's a lot of when you do ask for help, earnest help, I think people are surprised at how many people actually go, yeah, I'll help you.
Or like coming
Right.
back to that earlier point about Sonder, right? About all these other people.
It's a good word. I'm going to call that a college word. It's a good word.
Yeah, SAT word for sure.
And, you know, and you touched on this earlier, Dan, you know, where you say, one, you do need some idea of who you are and who you want to be, right? Because you are somebody to everybody else and they want you to carry on doing that, right? To your employer, you are a happy little worker bee who never asks for a raise, never complains and gets everything done no matter how much work they give you. And they will make you they have designs for you to be that person, right? And to your neighbor, you're something. And to there's a lot of people that want you to be things that aren't necessarily good for you because it's good for them, right? And then there's a lot of people that want you to be something, you know, you're a husband, a wife, a child, you know, all want things. And you have to have some identity of your own. Otherwise, these things do just kind of get pushed onto you. It's not malicious.
Right.
You know, my son wants me to play with him every second of every day, right? Like,
that's not good for you.
I know that would be very bad for me as a parent, right? And for him ultimately, because that mortgage keeps on coming.
Those property taxes are real.
But like, you know what I mean? And like, that's not him being mean. That's just him having needs, right? Same with the employer. They don't necessarily want me to be some weird little robot, but they're just a company has needs. But at the same way, right? I think if someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, can I get some help?" I was like, you're like, "Yeah, I'd help someone, just for no particular reason, just like it's nice. Like I like helping people." And similarly, there's think to yourself, if someone came up to you and said, "I really need some help, can you help?" Someone you trusted, it's not some weird person on the street kind of thing, and you'd be like, "Yeah, I'll help. Like I'll give you an hour of my time. But what is it you need? I'll get a coffee." Because if that's true for you, coming back to my Sonder point, then everyone else in that crowd is probably not that different from you.
And the other aspect is, and I learned this from one of my friends, he was in insurance, and he says, "I wanted to be the best that there is." And I said, "Well, what did you do?" And I thought this was genius. He goes, "I went to the top agents in the United States in his particular company." And he goes, "I literally traveled to them." And I said, I asked them, "What did you do?"
And they told me.
Mentorship.
And they told him. And I've used that as a cheat sheet. So I've gone to other VCs
Wow.
that were much smarter than me. And I said, "What did you do?" Now, part of it is, we haven't talked about this, but we kind of alluded. Part of what we have to remember is sometimes it's just luck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's coming back
which
to
is a
the
good
Elon-
thing. But there's a little bit of, are you going to see the right company and invest at the right time? And I don't know.
Are the right deals coming to you and all that kind of stuff?
Sometimes it's just one goes to the moon. You're like, yay. I don't
Yeah, I don't know how that
No
happened.
idea what happened, right?
There's a little bit of luck. But I remember I've asked them, "What did you do?" "Well, I did X, Y, and Z. How did you structure this?" "I did this." And I went to successful people and I asked them. And it's kind of it's amazing how much they want to share, because what we're talking about is they also told me, "Don't do this. Right. Whatever you do, stay away from that."
And that can be some of the best advice, by the way, is, everyone wants to say, "Well, what did you do to succeed?" Right? Sometimes, like VCs is a good one, right? Or it's just impossible. Like, obvious, if identifying companies that were going to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars was in any way repeatable, there would be one enormously rich VC and they would just do that over and over again, right? And so there is some part of venture capital that's like, well, I'm going to cleverly win the lottery. Like, I've got a strategy for winning the lottery. Look, hey, 1 probably isn't coming out because there's only one ball in the lottery machine, right? So don't pick that, But to your point, like, knowing what not to do as well can be fantastically beneficial. Even like, well, I can't tell you what you should do, but I can tell you what. There are some dumb things that you.
Yeah.
Well, but it's also like when you hear that journey, you hear that story, which I love. I love hearing people's stories. And I asked one VC in town that did very well, and I said, "What did you guys do at this stage on Fund One?" And he went through it, and he goes, "Well, we really messed up this, and this was not good." And he went through all these things, and I was like, "Well, what did you do?" And he said, "Well, we kept working, we kept believing," and he goes, "We had one that did well, and that allowed us to get Fund Two." It wasn't but it was refreshing to hear, to go, wow, he kind of just owned it.
Right.
I might have got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily that it wasn't skill that he didn't try, but it was also, wow, I heard all these failures in a row. And I was like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for mentorship, and to your point about people understanding your community and people understanding, hey, we're going through all the same thing. It's good to hear that. It's healthy to go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I just thought, you just picked one and you wrote them a check and they made all kinds of money. It's like, doesn't usually feel that way.
And in seasons of life, our roles change. So before me and my cast go on stage, we go around to each other individually and we touch each other's backs and we say, I got your back. And we look each other in the eye. I got your back. I got your back. I got your back. Because if one of us forgets our line on stage, we know our castmate has our back and will, carry us through that. But it's the same for life. Like in work, you messaged me about someone who had lost a family member to encourage me to reach out and have their back. And I did.
Yeah.
So we can do that in real life too, with work people, with family.
Now, with your cast, like, are you one of those actors that you memorize everybody's line?
No, I just the one right before mine.
Okay. Because I know people that do that. And
Yeah.
It's so good. And you're like,
Once you hear it over and over and over again, and if you're not in that scene, I will sometimes be saying it off stage because I've heard it so many times, but it's not intentional. It's like if you've watched a movie 100 times, you quote it.
I do think though there's and this is something that I learned from a guy that's really good at leadership, and he was actually my boss, and he said, when you're working with folks, and if you tell them, if you don't break the law and you don't hurt anybody, I will always have your back, right? I'll be there no matter what. And I use that with my teams over the years, and it allows the team to come together. They'll take risks. They feel safe. Right?
Yeah.
Psychological safety.
Yes. And I remember, I hope this person doesn't see this podcast because she'll laugh, but one of the first big blast emails that we sent out for Mass Challenge, it said, and this was kind of funny to me, it said, hello, first name. It didn't say hello,
brackets, insert name here. Right.
It was awesome.
Hello, first name.
It was awesome. And I loved it because it's sort of funny because I was like, it was my first one. Right. And it went out, and of
you
course,
should have printed it and framed it and put it in the Mass Challenge.
Great.
And you're like, look, people make mistakes. Here is the first mass email from Mass Challenge. It is.
And all my friends, of course, replied with, hello, first name, right? Which was awesome. And I was like, great. But I remember saying, it's no big deal. I've got your back. It's just move on to the next one. It doesn't matter. And I think people seeing that, it was a mistake, but no one died. No one got hurt.
Right.
It was it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It is. Well, I mean, we're laughing about it now.
I think it's funny. But I think that's where you want to create that. And I learned that from a mentor who said, look, just tell them, don't break the law. I'm a rule follower, sort of. And then don't hurt anybody. And other than that, we will get through everything. I think that creates that, okay, it's almost like a family.
It is.
It is. Makes sense. Let's see if we can get one more in, and we're almost out of time, but I thought we've got one more question that we can.
What is the meaning of life?
Exactly. We'll need a little more time for that one. So this is Xavier.
Love him too.
He was great. How not to be lazy?
How do I stay consistent? How do I stay disciplined? How do I keep to maybe not even a schedule, but how do I just keep working at what I need to work at and keep putting out the content I need to put out? How do I not lose interest? How do I not get lazy? I think that's what I want to focus on the most.
That's a good one. So this may be a weird answer, but I think part of it is you just have to be in touch with who you are. So I think there's people that go and grab every single self-help thing and find out what works for somebody else. But what works for you? And I always try to do this. I try to, little Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind. What are you really trying to achieve? What is your impact? and keep that at the forefront.
Mhm.
Hey, we're trying to do X, Y, and Z. That's our goal. You may have a day
Mhm.
that just isn't productive. It's okay.
Right.
It happens.
Mhm.
But I see a lot of people that go, well, I read this book that said I should schedule things like this, and it's not working
Right.
because it probably doesn't work for you.
Exactly.
So I kind of go like, what motivates you? What keeps you going? And sometimes it's people that want the challenge. Sometimes people just want to work with other people. It's easier if you're in a group. Some people don't like to work alone.
Mhm.
Some people need it. I need it on the calendar. It'll never get done. Whatever it is. But I think the don't be lazy. Sometimes I go, if it's not really, and I've mentored people this way, if you really are having trouble with it, maybe the question is this your thing?
Mhm.
Right? Which is a hard thing. But sometimes like, well, maybe if you don't want to do this every day,
Don't do it.
maybe you shouldn't be doing it. But then there's, but I think I see so many kids just trying to force fit themselves into this thing. We all have it inside us. You all know what works for you.
Mhm.
And I think what's hard is trusting it to go, it'll work.
Mhm. I was going to add to that because I agree with everything you said. And I think part of it is, especially at this age, is figuring out what works for you. Because I don't think we all
Mhm.
know what works for us yet.
That's fair.
Right. And so it's taken me, 50 years to figure out. You're always kind of iterating on what actually works for you, and it just gets better and better and better. And so I equate it to like you've got this, I like analogy race cars. I grew up working on engines and stuff, but you've got this engine that you just put together. When you first start that engine, it's like, and you got to tinker with it, and it gets smoother and smoother and smoother until it's just like purring. And so that's us as humans. Like, you don't know what this is going to do. I'm going to hit the start button and go. I'm 18. I'm going to hit the start button, and it's going to be all jankety. And I'm reading all these things, and I'm supposed to be this, and I'm supposed to be this. And there is all this pressure that you think you need to measure up to.
Yeah.
But at the end, what you're just trying to figure out is actually what you said, which is figure out what works,
for you. I love that. I love that.
And that's what's interesting as well, because we've talked about this a lot on the podcast in various flavors, right? Like that North Star concept, right? Because also, I love your engine analogy, but what are you tuning for?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is this a high-speed drag
Right.
racing engine, or is this,
Torque
this
and
is
all that,
gas mileage, right? This is the family cruiser,
Right.
and those and don't show up to an endurance race with a dragster engine,
Right.
because it'll blow up on mile 7.
Yeah.
Right? Like, find the right thing.
Yeah.
What is that North Star, and what are you tuning for? Because it is 100%. I love that engine analogy, by the way, largely because I'm an engineer, but it is 100% true that, and again, coming back to when you talk to someone who's this enormous success, and then you look back and you're like, oh man, that was a lot of tuning that got done, right? These tiny incremental improvements that, going back to the interest on my mortgage, much like compound interest, like really start to add up, and then boom.
Exactly.
Right? And so I don't know, I just really enjoyed that.
I like that you added that as well, because back to your point, it is testing what you want to be.
Tweaking, yeah.
Right.
But testing yourself, so there's one thing to figure out who you are, but also what you want to do. In business, there's a term called MVP, minimum viable product. What are companies testing to do? They're creating something they think the market will like. They spend as little money as possible to create this thing to go test it. Apple, and I'm going to use Apple. Apple did that with an iPod, right? Let's just put this out there to see if it works. And from that, it turned into the next iteration. Next thing you know, they're the biggest company in the world.
Right.
For us as humans, we've talked about having an MER, minimum education requirement, to get my foot in the door. I want to figure out, is this thing work for me? Is that thing work for me? Is that thing work for me? Why would I put all of this money on red if I need to be on black? If that makes sense. So anyway, I think back to what you were saying, what kind of race is this going to be? Is this going to be a marathon? Is it going to be like, if I'm building this engine, what really fits for me? So making that match is important as well.
I also think it's important, while trying to figure out what works for you, too. A lot of the things that we're talking about are about productivity. How do you get it done? How not to be lazy? I've been told by 2 different people, well, have you scheduled an hour for yourself in the middle of everything you have going on? And I'm like, no, that feels dishonest because I'm just with myself. And then people, I won't be going to a meeting and they'll think that I'm just being lazy. No, I actually need that to rejuvenate and figure out, is this working for me? Is this not working for me? And then, hour for myself. There's one other thing I wanted to say. It went bye-bye. That's my grandmother.
The being on and being off is a real, I mean, they teach this is sympathetic and parasympathetic in your nervous system. If you just are one way, you're going to blow your engine and all of a sudden you're not going to end up working and you'll have to you'll take the dive. And so it's important to have that.
I think it's tuning in to yourself, though. I like that. And I think that's really wise because, like, my wife and I, we laugh because I'm a morning person. I can get up at 5 and work 5 to 9 and crank it and then go take a walk, right? And my wife is not. She's in the evening. So in the morning, I'm like a little spaz. Like, no, what's going on? Let's talk.
Good morning.
Let's have coffee. And she's like, can we just ease into the day?
Yeah.
And then at night, it's, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like,
you're winding down.
She goes, let's talk about our plans. I'm like, what?
I'm about to go into
why? I don't have any thought process right now. But I know that. And I also felt like a little guilty, especially if, there's times I work from home and I'll get up at 4 and I will just crank on email, get something done. And it's 8 o'clock and I'm like, can I go for a walk?
Yeah, is that allowed?
Is that right? And the answer is like, yes, it's okay. Because I did stuff.
Have you ever seen really young children learn to ride bikes? You ever seen video of that, right? And they stare at the front wheel. Because they're so worried about what's in front of them, and they ride straight into a bush.
Or a car.
Or a car, right? Yeah, bonk, And I've been guilty of this. When you are so fixated on what's in front of you, the next email, the next meeting, if you don't take time to look up, you're going straight into that bush. That's gonna happen.
That's good.
Just unlocked what I had lost a second ago. Is my friend Mandy is like, please turn off your phone for 1 hour. Like I email, diddling, text over and over and over, and I will respond to every single one of them, and then I'm derailed. So that's a good piece of advice that I'm trying to implement now.
I leave mine on silent all the time. So the messages happen, but it's that noise distraction that I could see that, or a lot of times I'll just I love focus on the computer. Just hit focus for an hour. It's not bothering me. I can go focus on my own, do some deep thinking.
Right.
And then, but yes, I'm also, oddly enough, every hour or two I check messages and make sure that I'm on top of things. And that rhythm seems to work really well. So people still get their communication, but it's not bothering my me time.
Right,
so
right.
Look at that. With that in mind, thank you. That wraps up our season. Thank you for being here.
All right.
Thanks for being the finale. This was a great episode.
Good.
Really, really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad.
Great.
And everyone look forward to season 3.
Yay.
And there you have it, folks. We've wrapped another season of Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life. Huge thank you to Mike Millard for bringing us joy and sharing his journey, from growing up in the Midwest to becoming a leader in venture capital and corporate strategy. Mike's stories about innovation, mentorship, and lessons learned in failure have been both enlightening and entertaining. Mike's passion for helping entrepreneurs through ventures like Pitch a Kid and his belief in the power of impact and growth have been the perfect way to close out this season. This season has been all about exploring paths less traveled and hearing from individuals who've embraced the challenges of creating something new. Thank you for coming along the ride with us. Check out our show notes to participate as a guest or Gen Z contributor, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any announcements about new episodes. We'll see you in season 3.